Welcome, everyone. You found Sanctuary's Coffee and Conversation Show. I'm Myrna Haskell, executive editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women that empowers and inspires. Our focus is the arts, philanthropy, health and wellness, culture, and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Dr. Carla Marie Manly. She is a clinical psychologist, a wellness and relationships expert, and is also the author of several books. She also happens to be the host of a very popular podcast, Imperfect Love, where she teaches us to navigate love struggles so we can come out on the other end in a more positive, uplifting way. And I know she talks about familial relationships and intimate relationships, and even self-love. So please check out her Imperfect Love podcast. Good morning, Carla. Thank you so much for joining me today on the show.
Good morning. It's such a pleasure to spend time with you and to share our uplifting information with the audience.
Yes, I know. I love this, right? Everybody can garner
Mhm.
something from these shows. And I know that many who are watching right now recognize you because Carla also happens to be a panel expert with Sanctuary Magazine. And just a little shout out for next month in our June issue, Carla answered readers' questions concerning the topic, finding the passion again in your intimate relationship. So please check that out with Carla in our June issue. But anyway, today is a different topic. So today we're going to talk about breaking out of our shells to find our true self. And so, Carla, I wanted to start it out because I love that we came up with the term shell, right? Because we build shells for different reasons. Sometimes it's to keep people out, but sometimes it works in the opposite way, right? Where we can't break out of certain things that we get stuck with, right? So, how do we know if we're navigating this correctly? How do we know if we are breaking out of the shell and that we're finding things that truly matter to us intimately? How do we know if we're on the right track?
That's such a good question and a great place to launch from because I think we are raised in many cases to listen to what other people want for us, whether it's our parents or society or, this long-term goal that we are supposed to achieve, the way a woman should be, a way of a man, a way of any person should be. And I think sometimes those messages are really toxic for who we are as individuals. And in some cases, people grow up in families where they are really empowered from an early age to be who they are, to lean into exploring who they are and being more of who they are. And I think, unfortunately, most of us, not that our parents intended to cramp our style, to, darken our souls, anything like that, but that's the end result. The end result is when we are not guided to follow our passion. If we knew it when we are young, which we often do, then we lose touch with that. And then we end up getting into this groove of life from grade school, often before then forward, paying attention to what we should be doing rather than to what our passion is guiding us to do. And I really believe that the soul, that the inner self knows what is right for us. But when we get lost in the voices of society, of culture, of parents, of friends, of Instagram telling us, TikTok telling us
Oh
what
my
we should,
goodness,
should,
yeah.
should, should do, right? Then our inner voice is drowned out and we don't know how to find it. And I really do believe that when we slow down, whether it's to meditate, exercise, clean the house in quiet, whatever it is that gives us a resting place, I think that that inner voice starts coming up like, here I am. You're not happy. Here I am. You're anxious, and this is why. Here I am. You're depressed, and you might want to look at why. And yet, it's so interesting we're having this conversation because just this morning I was talking to someone who was talking to me about their partner and saying how their partner is, in this track to make a lot of money, but the partner is not happy. They're doing it because they fear for the future and fear that they won't have
Oh,
financial
fears
stability.
come in, yeah.
Here is fear, which is we need to have food, clothing, shelter, but what, and I actually am aware of who the partner is. And absolutely, that partner is meant. Her soul, if you spend time with her, her soul is all about homemaking and quiet and gardening and doing a very gentle, maybe not a Luddite type life, but maybe not that short of it. And I recognize it because I'm very much that way myself, very quiet, very, give me the earth and that's my happy place. And so if we lose touch with that because we think we should be doing something else, the soul will suffer. We will be unhappy. So, how do we know we are on that track of getting away from what is right for us?
Yeah, are there signs? Are there signs that we
Yes, anxiety,
mm,
depression, not wanting to wake up in the morning, feeling that your life is purposeless. Your body is often telling you, hey, this isn't the right path. And I know this from personal experience. Almost everything I know, a lot of it's from clinical practice and education, but a lot of the way I'm informed is by my own life path. And I know I was on a path to be something everybody else wanted me to be. And my body said no. My body, in
yeah.
fact, my body, and I kept getting off my own course to please my family, to please other people. And each time my body would say, no, here's a different wake up call. You're not listening? Okay, so we're going to give you a different wake up call. And so when we don't really want to get to that stage, we don't want our body to be rebelling and telling us we're on the right path or the wrong path. We want our body, our mind, and our spirit to be paying attention to, no, this feels good. This is right. I am in a joyful place. Not always easy. Finding our joy, living our passion isn't always easy. I live my joy and passion now. Is my life easy? No, it's complex. I have lots of demands, but am I joyful? Oh, absolutely.
And that helps you with the demands though when you're joyful, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you have more energy and you have less anxiety because you're joyful about it.
And you have that sense of purpose that I believe we all need
Yeah,
purpose
that's so important. I agree,
to
Carla.
guide us. Because if we don't have purpose, whether it's waking up and tending to the chickens or tending to little ones or writing a book or, you know, teaching an exercise class, whatever you are doing that gives you purpose. And I am a big believer that when we follow our dreams, when we follow our passions, that the universe does support us. And I've seen this in my own life. I've seen it in my clinical practice. It doesn't mean that if you wake up and say, oh, I want to win the lottery, so that, that you're going to win the lottery. Because
No,
I've
I
also,
understand. You're giving
yeah,
off an energy to other people and other networks you have around us. And if that's a positive energy and a passion you're giving off versus like, anxiety and being wound up that you're giving off to those around you, it's going to, that ease is going to spread more and people are going to want to be helpful towards you. They're going to want to be in your space, right? Because you're not giving off that
absolutely.
negative energy.
Absolutely. And you also, I think that the minute you start, I think the world is filled with a lot of people who aren't living their passion. And I've worked with a lot of people who've come to me, they're in their third year of medical school. They're already an engineer, they're a doctor, they're whatever. And they say, hey, I'm not happy doing this. I did this because my parents told me that I should, and I get it. And so we work to help them find their passion. And sometimes it's in a similar realm. Sometimes it's in something completely different. That
Yeah.
is, I'm thinking of one individual who was an engineer and her passion was quilting. And she finally started pivoting and created, a life where, yes, she had to do some side work with engineering, but also really leaned into the quilting. And absolutely, that energy, the depression, that cloud of depression began to shift because I believe the universe wants more people living their passion
Yeah.
and fewer
Yeah.
people who feel like indentured servants.
Yes, that's right. I want to talk a little bit about those, same old patterns, though, that we get ourselves into that are really hard to break out of. And maybe when we talk about this, you get comfortable with these certain things, right? but this shell, like I mentioned, it could be a shell that's keeping you others out, but also keeping you in, right? And so one of my patterns is my perfectionism that gets in the way. And it's maybe not even other people putting these pressures and things on me, but I'm doing it myself too. So I'm wondering if we can, how do we break out of these patterns? Because I know that this is a pattern I get into and I'm a work in progress, Carla. But you're the expert here. So, how can we break out of these paradigms, these patterns of comfort we have for ourselves that are actually keeping us back?
I think it's such a great question. And as a recovering perfectionist, I completely am there with you. And I think part of it is first the awareness, just being aware, okay, I have these perfectionistic tendencies. Okay, I'm not going to judge them. They're there. Sometimes they work for us, like getting a book out, right? And having it
Yeah.
be in good form, or,
Deadlines.
deadlines, being a
Yes.
sanctuary, chief editor, all those things. It works for us. But then we want to look, where is it not serving me? Maybe it's not serving me in my relationships. Maybe it's not serving me in how hard I am on myself in general, right? So we want to realize that perfectionism, there is a part of it that is a gift. It helps us. We, for example, if we're a physician, we want to be a perfectionist. We want to make
Right.
sure
That's
that
right.
when we're doing heart surgery, we're not leaving a sponge inside, right? So
Absolutely.
but we don't want to go home and take that same sort of energy and expect our wife or our kids or our husband to be exactly in line all the time. So I want to first realize that everything has a light and a shadow side.
Oh, I like
And that,
that. That's true.
yeah, and we want to make friends with it. And so for me, the way I've dealt with my perfectionism is realizing there are times it's really serving me. And then there are times that I speak to it and say, okay, my darling perfectionistic streak, let's turn your volume down. Now it's okay. This
Yeah.
little bit of mess is okay, or your partner leaving his shoes right in front of you for the 500th time where you're going to trip. That's okay. Just move them to the side, send him blessings, right? Because what we shift, and by just doing those little pieces where it's giving ourselves grace, giving others grace, and being wise about that energy that we're using. Let's dial it down for a minute. In my fourth book that you were mentioning, The Joy of Imperfect Love, I talk about our feelings, thoughts, mindset, energy, and actions. And it's an interplay. So for the perfectionist, so let's just see how we can use this for everything. I'm saying, for example, that my kitchen is a mess and I'm tired and I need to clean it up perfectly before I go to bed, right?
Okay.
I must. Okay. So my feeling is probably some anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay. Where does that anxiety come from? Hmm. Well, the idea that my bedroom had to be clean and everything had to be in order, or I got screamed at as a child, that's probably where it comes from. Okay, got it. So those are my thoughts, that if I don't clean it up perfectly, then I'm not going to be safe. I'm not going to be loved. Oh, that's interesting. So now my mindset is, well, then I must keep everything tidy in my world, and that keeps me safe. So I go through life trying to be perfect so I feel safe. Maybe not loved, but at least I feel safe. So my energy, then I'm going out in the world. My energy is everything must be in its place, everything must be perfect. Okay. Notice how my energy is shifting. Now my energy is stressed and anxious. Now my behavior, my actions. So now I'm going and I'm making the kids keep everything tidy. I'm making the partner keep everything tidy. I'm kind of a bear at work because everybody has to have da da
Yes.
da da da. Whew. Okay, let's shift that. Now let's try to do the feelings, thoughts, energy, mindset, actions in a different way. And I'm going to bracket over here that I still have to have my kitchen clean at night.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't like waking up to the mess, but at
I'm
least I
hearing though, if
understand.
it's like spilling into everything where it's actually becoming like a drain on you and those around you is when it's a
Yes.
problem, right?
Yes, and being okay to even say, yeah, I do prefer it to be clean, but I can either take the dog out, for a lot, if I have enough energy to do one of two. Okay, I'm okay if I leave the kitchen dirty. But for many people, they don't want to leave it dirty because they don't want to wake up to the mess. So it might
Yeah.
not be the perfect example, but we'll
Right.
still
No, but
roll
I
with it.
understand, and I think the listeners understand too. I'm
Yeah.
also hearing you say, Carla, that part of this breaking out of these habits we have that make us anxious or whatever it is that's going on, if it's not perfectionism, it's something else, that a lot of breaking out of that is introspection and maybe time for just a bit of meditation. I think you mentioned, if you're whatever it is that you're doing, you're drawing, you're journaling, you're quilting, in my case, I've been painting because we're redoing our master bedroom and I've been doing the painting, but it's actually relaxing to me in some ways, because I can think about things I normally don't have time to think about. So, I think a lot of times people don't feel like they have the time for that, which sort of segues me into what I wanted to discuss as well, something that has come up in sanctuary time and time and time again, and that's that life balance, that work life family balance, these daily responsibilities that are real responsibilities. Maybe we're caring for elderly parents or children and our work responsibilities and the people that we have to get things done for. So I know your words of wisdom. We've gotten a little bit on this with you and other shows, but I know that most people that are listening right now are struggling with daily responsibility. And then this idea that we have we found our true selves? Are we breaking out of those conditioned things that we've been conditioned since a child with? So any words of wisdom from Miss Carla would be great on that topic.
I think first, I'll use the feelings, thoughts, mindset, energy, actions in a positive way. So a listener could see how taking what is a stressful or appears to be a stressful life situation, now we have a situation in front of us where we're called to care for somebody, but we also have our own life, right? And people keep calling us because they know that we are the ones that will do, will do, will do. So we want to please, we want to please, we want to love, we want to love.
Yeah, there's that.
But yes, but here we are losing the self. So we come up, the feeling comes up, somebody's calling me, asking me to do one more volunteer thing, on top of 20 others that we've been asked to do, right? So we go, okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling stressed. Okay, thought. I need to please everybody. Feelings, thoughts, mindset. Okay, be the good person, please everyone, do it. Energy. Okay, now I'm going to bake those cookies, going to show up for that event. I'm going to do actions. You do them, but now you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And now
I
we're
was
angry.
exhausted listening to that, Carl.
And now we're angry,
Yeah.
right? So now let's do it differently. Somebody calls, says, hey, could you take on this role over here? Pause. What do I feel coming up? Anxiety. Why am I anxious? Because I'm overloaded. Okay, so now my thought is, I am overloaded. I want to take care of myself instead of caring for others. So we did the feelings, the thought, the mindset. My health is important to me. I am a precious person. My energy is important to me. How I show up in the world and being a model of somebody who has healthy boundaries. So now I have a more balanced mindset. Now my energy is going to be more relaxed, more caring for self and for others. My action. Thank you so much for inviting me to attend this event and take on this role. But you know what? I am quite stretched thin and I'm backing off of commitments right now. You can feel free to reach out to me in a year. I might be available then.
I think I'm
Notice
hearing the
that.
pause is what's so important
Hmm.
because when you have a lot on your plate, just as you and I and half the world has, or more than, almost all the world has, you've got all these things on your plate and you just do the go-to. Just keep moving,
Do more, do.
just keep swimming, just keep swimming. What was that? The Finding Nemo movie, I think. And that's sort of your go-to and you don't take the pause. I heard you saying each time. So now pause. Like so I think you're changing your way of thinking about each situation and you're stopping yourself to reset your mind almost like?
Yes,
Is
and
that
that's why the piece where you were talking about the meditation, whether you're painting, raking leaves, doing a seated sort of Zen meditation. I meditate during the first part of my walks in the morning. Why? Because the meditation allows us to, exactly as you said, turn inward. Turn inward, notice thoughts, release thoughts, or journaling can help. It's different from meditation, but it can help us become more objective,
Mhm.
non-judgmental in everything. Throughout my books, I talk about the importance of being non-judgmental because that critical mind, critical of self, critical of others, will hop in so quickly. We want to learn to be observers of ourselves, to reflect and to be able to step outside and see ourselves as a loving parent or a loving God or a loving other might see us. Be that sort of fly on the wall and say, Myrna, I know you love everyone and you want to please everyone, but I can see you are so exhausted. How about we take that backpack off your back for a week and see how that feels?
Yeah.
Just how about if we take 5 of the rocks out of your backpack and see how it feels? Because you might say, oh, I'm not ready to take that whole backpack off. Okay, let's take 5 of the rocks out. See
Sometimes
how
for
it
me,
feels.
Carla, it's actually physically removing myself. I have a home office, like really going for a bike ride, going on vacation, just like physically removing myself from where I have the mindset that I'm doing, like the Energizer Bunny.
That is
Um,
such a good point. And you're right, it doesn't have to be a vacation. If somebody can't afford to take a vacation or can't afford the time off, simply getting out of your workspace or
yeah,
your home space
changing
for
environment, right?
2 hours, just going and no agenda, sit in a park, go get a manicure, go for, like you said, a bike ride, because there's something about sometimes we're in our space, the doing space, and we don't have the energy. So we're not being productive. We're being there, kind of slogging through, but
Yeah,
at a quarter of the pace we would be if we allowed ourselves a break just to, go browse through an antique store, go,
yeah,
observe the ducks in the pond, whatever it is. And that's why I think it's so important to give ourselves grace. And people think that self-care is selfish, but self-care helps us see where we are with the metaphorical shell we're talking about.
right.
Are we stuck in our shell? Is there something holding us back? Is there a way? Do we need to be in that shell? If we're thinking of it as sort of a protective, loving
Good
space.
point. Wow, good point. Yes.
Sometimes we do want, I'm very much an introvert, so I crave a lot of shell time. Is that hard for me? And I give, as do you. So that's a part of my energy drain. And so I have learned to say, no, thank you for the offer for a walk. And also, it's really interesting. I notice when I go on my walks, a lot of people walk with, you know, girlfriends or partners, and I do that on the weekends. But I also realize how much I crave my solo walks and doesn't take, even though we love our girlfriends, conversing is a back and forth, a communing with
Yes, you're
other,
right.
where
Yeah.
sometimes we want stillness where we're not doing that. And I know in our society, many people think if you're out alone, I've had clients tell me this, if they're out alone, they feel like they're broken, like people are going to judge them and say that, there's
Yeah,
something wrong
no.
with them. Oh, no, 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 no. If you want solitary time, you can be lonely in a huge crowd. You can be
Yes, that's
lonely
right.
with 50
Wow.
friends around you,
Yes.
but we want to know and be able to take our temperature and constantly take our temperature, not our physical, 98.6 temperature, but the temperature of how we are faring and be able to dial things down when we need to, when we want to. Maybe even sometimes to prevent, preemptively dial it down. And I
Yeah.
think that's the part where why I love focusing in my work and in my books on self-awareness, because that is the key
Yes,
to
I'm hearing that through everything
everything.
you've said, Carla.
Yeah.
Yes, self-awareness. Yeah.
And that's not being selfish
No,
at all.
no.
It's the opposite. I think some of the most selfish people are those who have no self-awareness, because if they have no self-awareness, then they're not tuning into themselves and haven't learned how to tune into others. So we really want to pay attention. Somebody who has high self-awareness will be, in time, you just become more and more attuned to other people and to yourself. It's a beautiful way. And people, as you change, this is a really important piece, Myrna, as you change, particularly if you're used to doing to please others, as you start saying no, and listeners, remember, no is a complete sentence. You don't need to offer excuses. You can
Right.
simply
That's
say
right. That's important
no.
to know. Yes.
If you say no, you don't have to say, no, I can't go to your party because blah, 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 or make up a story. You can simply say no. And if the other person respects your boundaries, they're not going to, dig, dig, dig. They'll say, okay, I'm sorry, wish you could attend, love to
Right.
have you there. But a really important piece of that is that as we say no, notice I'm segueing into boundaries, as we have stronger boundaries, which are a sign of self-love, not
Yes,
and
good point. Good point.
yes, because boundaries, and not too strong of boundaries where we shell saying no, no, no to everybody to keep everybody away, but where we're aware of our self needs and we say, no, thank you for the offer. And other people may start being upset with us, because especially if they have been used to us saying yes to everything, to
Yeah.
being the person
Well,
in the family who takes care of
yeah.
everybody, who tends to the parents, who makes everything work, who schedules all the parties. When we start saying no, they may say, oh, what's
Hmm.
wrong with you? You're the problem. Why are you being such a problem? Why are you being such a witch? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I'm just learning my boundaries.
Right,
My
right.
boundaries are telling me to tune into what's right for me. And so
And then you can
sometimes,
be, though, a happier person and a nicer person around people because I think, when you don't respect your boundaries, then you start to get snarky, right? Because now you're upset, you're anxious, you're tired, so maybe you weren't going to show up like your smiling full self at that event anyway, if you went. Do you know what I
Ex
mean? So,
precisely, or
yeah.
you may go to the event, put on a very happy face, and come home and take it out on
Yes.
yourself or
Mm-hmm.
somebody at home. And so if you don't feel safe being snarky in public, maybe you come home and you're snarky to your partner or to your
That's
dog,
right,
or
which is not very not good.
which is not very.
Yes.
So it's that part about realizing that when we tune into what's truly right for us, the events that we do go to, or the positions, however we decide to use our time, they we will have more of an abundance of energy. And here's another really cool piece to the whole mix. Let's think of it in a family context. If you're the person, you have a couple brothers and sisters, imagine, and you have aging parents, and you're the one who everybody calls because they know you do it, or you're the stay-at-home mom or the retired one, so you're the one who has to do. By you saying no, I will do my percentage and you guys need to step up. And let's say they're out of state, well, they can step up financially and pay for a caregiver or something. But we're imagining in this scenario, and so what happens, they may have some pushback, they may be upset, but look at what you're doing. You're holding the other people accountable.
Yeah. And delegating so that everything isn't on your shoulders. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And you can do that in the workplace too, right? And you can do that at
Absolutely.
home. Have everybody pitch in. It's not one person's responsibility to do everything at home with home chores either, right? That works all across the spectrum, I think.
All across the spectrum. And what I love about this part is that you do not then feed other people's desire to be irresponsible. You are not, you know, leaning into weaponized incompetence in many cases. You are simply saying, wait, there are 5 of us here, whether it's a work crew, a student crew, your family crew, and saying, I'll do my 20%. And then you all figure out how to, and in a family environment, like you said, when we tell, kiddos, wait a second, you have homework, and after the homework, your job is the vacuuming every Monday. Every Tuesday, it's tidying up the bathroom, whatever it is. We're building.
Yes.
There, by us having boundaries, by us asking a partner to pitch in, not only are our boundaries healthy for us, we are teaching other people that about respect for the self, respect for relationships. We are teaching work ethic. We are teaching personal responsibility. We
Yep.
are modeling it. So remember, listeners, that when you are getting stronger boundaries and you're no longer willing to bear the load for everybody else, you are automatically becoming a light for other people who also can benefit from sharing responsibilities.
That's right. And then when you suggest that these other folks, no matter what the situation is, help with the responsibility, then if you're the perfectionist, don't jump in and micromanage after the fact, right? Because if you allow these folks to do it their way, maybe they will take it on more, take the responsibility more seriously, because now it becomes their thing to do or their part to play, right? That probably works as well on the other
It's
side, as you said.
such a
Yeah,
good point, because sometimes when we are perfectionists and we're wanting to do it our way, and somebody's trying to do it their way, it may be different from ours, but it may be effective in its own way.
right.
If we beat them up or micromanage them, emotionally criticize, that's what I meant by the beating up, or micromanage, we are then diminishing their sense of being valuable.
Yes, absolutely.
And we don't,
Absolutely.
yes, we
And then it
want.
defeats the whole purpose of asking people to help in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah,
And if the journey is, or the goal is to create, let's say it's caring for older parents or something, I may have one way, you may have another way. And as long as the parents are getting cared for, that's all. Like, let's leave and families often get into the dynamics of do it my way or the highway. But really, it's about our goal is to show our parents we care for them and we love them. So
right.
let's
That's
just
right.
chip in each in our, here's another key area, Myrna, in our areas of strengths. So
Yes,
if my area
absolutely.
is
And boy, does that
cleaning,
work in business too, Carla, right? Because we have a
mhm,
lot of business folk that listen to this podcast, and that really works in the workplace big time.
and it does, and it's so interesting how so many concepts, which I raised this point in The Joy of Imperfect Love, so many concepts of healthy relationships are exactly the same for friendships, work relationships, family relationships, love relationships.
Right,
It's the degree of intimacy that shifts that can make the work harder. But the
right.
concepts of love and appreciation and gratitude and honesty and integrity and values, those are all the same. The
Right.
emotional intelligence. But what we want to do is to really see that if we're trying to make things happen in a perfect way, that may work against us in many ways. So being able to step out of what we envision and really listen, and this is where communication becomes a really big piece. We want to be able to listen to other people, to their
Yes.
perspectives, to their needs, to what they truly want. And I believe that first comes from learning to listen to the self.
Oh,
If we can
that's
learn to listen,
perfectly
to
said.
slow down and listen.
Well, thank you, Carla. I wish we had another hour to talk about this. Maybe we should do a part two.
It would be
But I
lovely.
wanted to give you a minute or two to talk about you. I mean, what's happening with Carla today? Any future projects? Anything you'd like to say about your services to our community? Whatever you'd like to say about that.
So I always have a couple of books working themselves out on paper and in my head, more than a
Oh,
couple.
good.
So I have things to come. My latest news is that in concert with The Joy of Imperfect Love, I created, with the help of 2 other individuals, and one of which is the artist for the cards, Imperfect Love relationship cards, and they will
Oh,
be available quite soon, and they are beautiful. It's a 45 deck. Um, they're reflection and oracle cards. So they take concepts from the book, give it to you in a bite size, and then allow you to reflect on it and
oh,
look at the
that's great. When is that going to be available?
um, I got my first shipment of them, so we're getting ready to work with Amazon on them. But
Oh, good.
they're behind, a deck of them is behind me right up there. Um, and so they're just beautiful. They're beautiful and they're so soulful. And I love how you can take them at different layers. You can look at them and work with yourself on a very superficial level, just like, oh, what does this mean? Or you could have an hour-long conversation or meditate on that card.
Right.
And you could,
However you need to use them, probably from day to
yes,
day. It's a day-to-day thing, maybe even how
day
you
to
feel you would
day,
use them. Yeah.
and great for relationships, great for friendships. And it's also that
Yeah,
part
because you could
where
use them almost like as a communication like tool with people.
hunt,
Pick a card. Let's talk about this one.
let's
Yeah.
talk about it and go, and you could go pretty deep with some of these. And I really love how, whether it's, for newlyweds or just for self-work, some people say, well, what do I meditate on? Well, you can pick one of a card and just let it reveal what it reveals as you're doing the
Right.
housework.
Right.
Before you go to sleep, see what happens, because I believe that our psyches want us to be filled with joy and peace.
I
And
agree.
sometimes we just need little bits of support along the way. So that's what's the newest in my world, and I'm so
I love
excited
it.
about them.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully our community who's listening will go and get them and we can put something in sanctuary about that, of course, Carla.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure. I love doing this
It's
show with you. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and thank you, and thanks to the community. It's always a delight to share whatever I can.
I'd like to close, as I always do, by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us today.